You hear it before you feel it. The first drop lands somewhere above you, muffled by insulation and plaster and the accumulated distance between you and the sky. Then another. Then the sound becomes continuous, a soft static that wraps around the edges of your awareness, and you realize it's raining. You're inside, dry, safe. The rain can't touch you, but something about that sound makes you feel further away from something you can't name. It's not the rain itself. Rain is just water falling through air, obeying gravity, completing the cycle that textbooks explained to you in childhood. It's the same rain that falls on every roof, every street, every continent. Chemically identical, physically predictable. Yet tonight, listening to it drum against a roof you've only lived under for a year or two or five, shall you feel something close to loneliness. Not the loneliness of being alone, but the loneliness of being unwitnessed. The rain falls on your walls, and the sound means nothing except that it's raining. There's no history in it, no continuity, just precipitation and you, a stranger to your own shelter. You've felt this before, in the last apartment and the one before that, in hotel rooms and rental houses, and the bedroom you slept in as a teenager, after you'd already begun to leave it in your mind. The rain sounds different in every place, not because the rain itself changes, but because the listening changes. Because you're different in relation to the walls. Because the roof over your head isn't the roof that covered your first nightmare, your first fever, your first understanding that storms pass and morning comes. That this roof is newer to you. It doesn't know you yet. And somehow, that makes the weather feel colder than it is. Modern life has made you efficient at shelter. You can move across cities, across countries, and within weeks establish a new enclosure against the elements. You sign a lease, arrange furniture, calibrate the thermostat. You create the conditions for comfort with remarkable speed. Your great-great-grandparents would find this astonishing, this ability to transplant yourself into new walls as easily as changing clothes. But they might also notice something you're only beginning to feel, something that has nothing to do with the quality of the shelter and everything to do with the quality of the sheltering. Because shelter used to mean something more than protection from rain. It meant belonging to a specific piece of earth. It meant that the walls around you held not just your own history, but the history of everyone who shared your name, your blood, your daily bread. The roof that kept you dry was the same roof that kept your grandmother dry, and her mother before her. When rain fell, it fell on a continuity. It fell on a place that knew what your family sounded like when they dreamed. You don't have that anymore. Most of us don't. And we tell ourselves it doesn't matter because we have central heating and double-pane windows and insulation that our ancestors couldn't imagine. We tell ourselves we've progressed beyond the need for that kind of rootedness. We're mobile now, flexible, free to pursue opportunities wherever they arise. We've traded the weight of staying for the lightness of leaving, and we call this advancement. But late at night, when the rain starts, something in you remembers a different equation. Something in you knows that the sound of weather should mean more than it does, that it should connect you to something larger than the lease you signed and the rent you pay. And the fact that it doesn't, the fact that you can listen to rain on your roof and feel like a guest in your own life, makes you wonder what you've actually gained in all this glorious mobility. You're not unhappy exactly. Your life is probably more comfortable than any of your ancestors could have imagined. You have choices they never had. You have safety they could only pray for. You have medical care and climate control and the ability to communicate instantly with people on the other side of the world. By every objective measure, you're winning at the game of human existence. And yet when it rains, you feel homeless in your own home. You feel the peculiar isolation of being surrounded by walls that have no memory of you, in a building full of neighbors whose names you don't know, in a city that would forget you the moment you left it. You feel the weight of your own impermanence pressing down with the same gentle insistence as the rain itself. And you wonder when shelter stopped feeling like belonging and started feeling like just another transaction, just another temporary arrangement in a life built entirely from temporary arrangements. This feeling isn't depression, though it can wear that mask. It isn't ingratitude, though it might look like that from the outside. It's something older and stranger than either of those things. It's the sound of your nervous system trying to tell you something about continuity and rootedness and the human need to be held by more than just walls. It's your bones remembering what your mind has been taught to forget. That you are an animal that needs a territory, not just a space. That you need to belong somewhere, not just be located somewhere. The modern world has become very good at providing location. You can pinpoint yourself on a map with extraordinary precision. You can triangulate your position using satellites, find yourself on a grid, mark your coordinates down to the meter. But location isn't the same as place. Place is what happens when location accumulates time and meaning. Place is what happens when the same walls witness the same lives long enough for the witnessing to matter. A place is what you're missing when the rain falls and you feel like no one, not even the building itself, knows that you're listening. Your apartment is a location. Your rental house is a location. Even the home you might own, if you own one, is just a location. If you've only been there a few years, if you're already wondering when you'll move again, if the walls know you're probably going to leave before they learn who you really are. Location can be changed with a phone call and a moving truck. Place requires something you don't have enough of anymore. It requires time that doesn't count toward anything, doesn't advance your career or increase your net worth or expand your opportunities. It requires the kind of time that just is, that accumulates like dust, like rings in a tree, like the slow staining of floorboards under the same footsteps year after year after year. You've been taught to see that kind of time as waste, stagnation, settling. You've been taught that growth means movement, that success means ascending to new and better locations, that staying in one place is something you do when you've given up on something. And maybe that's true in the economic game you're required to play. Maybe mobility really is necessary for the kind of life you're supposed to want. But your body doesn't know about career advancement. Your nervous system doesn't read economic reports. The ancient parts of your brain that light up when rain falls on your roof are still operating on older software, still looking for signals that you're safe in a way that transcends physical safety. They're looking for the safety of being known, the safety of being part of a continuity larger than your individual life, the safety that comes from sleeping under a roof that has heard your family's breathing for generations. And when they don't find it, when the rain falls on walls that are strangers to you, those ancient systems send up a quiet distress signal. Not an alarm exactly, just a low-grade unease, a sense that something is missing, a kind of loneliness that has nothing to do with how many people you know or how many messages wait on your phone. It's the loneliness of discontinuity, the loneliness of being the first and probably the last person to create memories in these particular walls. The loneliness of knowing that when you leave, and you will leave, the rain will fall just the same on someone else's dreams. And the building won't remember the difference. This wasn't always how it felt to be human. For most of the time your species has existed, the opposite was true. The rain that fell on your roof was the rain that fell on your mother's roof, and her mother's roof, and back through a chain of mothers until the beginning of memory. The walls that sheltered you were the walls that sheltered everyone you came from. And when storms came, the sound they made wasn't just weather. It was a kind of conversation with time itself, a reminder that you were part of something that had been going on before you arrived and would continue after you left. That continuity wasn't romantic. It wasn't always comfortable. In fact, it was often brutal in ways you can't fully imagine from your centrally heated present. But it gave you something you're missing now. Something that has nothing to do with comfort and everything to do with coherence. It gave you a place in the world. Not just a location, but a place. a specific piece of earth that knew you and that you knew, that had absorbed your family's sweat and tears and joy and boredom for so long that you couldn't tell where the place ended and the people began. Let yourself drift back there for a moment, not to any specific time or place, but to the feeling of what it meant to live that way. To wake up in walls that your grandfather built, on land that your grandmother worked, surrounded by people who would know your great-grandchildren. To hear rain on a roof and know that your mother heard that same sound, and her mother and her mother's mother. That back through a chain of listening so long, it felt less like history and more like a kind of prayer. Imagine what that does to the nervous system. Imagine what it means to never wonder if you belong, because belonging isn't a question. It's a fact, as obvious and undeniable as the rain itself. You belong to this place because this place made you. Your bones are built from food that grew in this soil. Your lungs learned to breathe this particular air. Your ears learned the world through these specific sounds. Rain on this specific roof, wind through these specific trees, footsteps on these specific floors. You don't have to wonder who you are because the place tells you, not in words, but in the constant quiet confirmation of fit. You fit here. Your body is the right shape for this space. Your rhythms match the rhythms of this land. When you're tired, you know where to rest. When you're hungry, you know where food comes from. When you're afraid, you know which walls will hold you. This knowledge isn't something you learned, it's something you are. The rain falls differently in that world. Or maybe it's more accurate to say the listening is different. Because when rain hits your roof, it's not just hitting your roof. It's hitting the same surface that's been sheltering your people since before anyone could remember when the sheltering started. The sound connects you backward through time and forward into the future that will outlast you. It roots you in a continuity that makes your individual life feel both smaller and larger at the same time. Smaller because you're just one listener among many. Larger because you're part of something that transcends any single life. Your great-great-grandmother lying in the dark, listening to rain. Your great-grandmother as a child, scared of thunder, comforted by walls that knew her. Your grandmother, young and pregnant with your mother, wondering what kind of world she was bringing a child into while rain drummed overhead. Your mother, decades later, listening to the same sound, thinking thoughts that rain has always pulled from human minds. And you, not yet born, already connected to all of them through the simple fact of the same water falling on the same roof. That continuity wasn't poetry. It was life, ordinary, repetitive, often hard life. Your great-great-grandmother didn't lie there feeling grateful for the profound symbolic significance of the moment. She was probably exhausted, or cold, or worried about the leak she'd noticed last week, and or thinking about the work that would face her at dawn. The rain was just rain. The roof was just a roof. There was nothing mystical about it in the living of it, but there was something underneath the ordinariness, something so fundamental that no one had to name it or even notice it. There was coherence. There was fit. There was the deep animal knowledge that you were where you were supposed to be, surrounded by people who shared your understanding of how life worked, protected by walls that had protected everyone you came from. This didn't make life easy. Don't let yourself slip into that fantasy. The past wasn't better. It was harder in almost every way you can measure. Harder physically, harder medically, harder economically. Your ancestors worked longer hours at more brutal labor than you've ever experienced. They watched children die of diseases you've been vaccinated against. They endured cold that would send you to the emergency room and hunger that would break you. They had almost no choice about how to live, where to go, what to do with their days. The walls that gave them continuity also trapped them. The place that made them feel rooted also limited them. You wouldn't trade lives with them. You wouldn't last a week in their world, and they, if they could see your life, would think you were living in a kind of paradise. Hot water from a tap, light at the touch of a switch, Food from 1,000 miles away, available at any hour. Medicine that actually works. The ability to move freely, to choose your work, to speak your mind without fear. So why does the rain on your roof feel lonelier than the rain on theirs? Not because their lives were better. They weren't. Not because they had some wisdom you've lost. They didn't. Not because the past holds some secret key to happiness that the present has misplaced. It doesn't. The ache you feel isn't about the past being superior. It's about the past providing something that the present has removed without replacing. The past gave people a place in the world. Not a good place, not always. Not a fair place, not usually. Not a place they chose, almost never. But a place. A specific location in the web of human meaning where they fit, where they belonged, where their existence made sense in relation to everyone and everything around them. You have freedom they couldn't imagine. You have comfort they couldn't dream of. You have options that would have seemed like magic to them. But you don't have a place. Not the way they did. You have many locations, many temporary arrangements, many provisional belongings. But you don't have the bone-deep certainty that you're exactly where you're supposed to be, surrounded by people who will know your grandchildren's grandchildren, protected by walls that will still be standing when everyone who remembers you is gone. And your nervous system notices. Not consciously, not in a way you can easily articulate, but somewhere in the ancient machinery of your brain, in the parts that predate language and logic and everything you think of as thinking, there's a quiet alarm that never quite stops ringing. You're not where you're supposed to be. You're not with who you're supposed to be with. The walls around you don't know you. The ground beneath you doesn't claim you. You're safe, yes, but you're not home. Not in the way that word used to mean. Not in the way your body still needs it to mean. This is what you're hearing when the rain falls on your temporary roof. This is the source of that peculiar loneliness, not sadness about the past, not nostalgia for some imagined golden age. Just your animal self trying to tell you that something is missing from the equation of your existence. Something that has nothing to do with whether your life is good or bad, successful or unsuccessful, happy or sad. Something deeper than mood, deeper than circumstance. Something about belonging to a continuity larger than your individual story. The strange thing is, you can't go back. Even if you tried, even if you moved to the place your grandparents came from and lived in the house they lived in, you wouldn't find what you're looking for. Well, it's because the continuity is already broken. The chain is already severed. You've been taught to think in different categories, to value different things, to measure your life by different metrics. You've learned to see staying as stagnation and moving as growth. You've internalized the logic of mobility, the necessity of flexibility, the virtue of keeping your options open. You can't unlearn that. You can't think your way back to a kind of rootedness that only works if you've never thought about it at all. The moment you become conscious of the continuity, the moment you try to claim it as a value or a goal, you've already left it behind. Rootedness isn't something you choose. It's something you inherit without choosing, something that exists before choice becomes possible. So you're caught. And you can't go back to the continuity that made rain on your ancestors' roof feel like prayer. But you can't quite move forward into a world where discontinuity doesn't hurt. You're suspended between two ways of being human, benefiting from the freedom of the new way, while grieving for the coherence of the old way. And the rain, falling on your stranger's roof, reminds you of the gap between what you have and what you need. But maybe there's something in the gap itself. Maybe there's something in the listening, even if the listening comes with loneliness. Maybe the fact that you can hear the difference between a roof that knows you and a roof that doesn't means something about who you are and what you're capable of feeling. Because you're not numb. Despite everything that modern life does to numb you, to speed you up, to keep you distracted and productive and moving, you can still feel this. You can still hear rain and sense what's missing. You can still long for something you've never actually had, something that existed before you were born and will never exist again, at least not for you. Your heart is still soft enough to break over something as quiet as weather on an unfamiliar roof. That softness is worth something. That capacity to feel the absence of continuity, to notice the loneliness of discontinuous shelter, to wish that walls could know you the way they knew your grandmother. That capacity is a kind of grace. It means you're still connected to the parts of yourself that remember what it meant to be human before humans became what you are now. It means the ancient systems are still running, still checking for the old signals. They're still hoping to find the coherence that used to be as common as rain. Think about what that means. You're living in a world that your great-great-grandparents couldn't have imagined, using technology that would seem like witchcraft to them, communicating across distances they spent lifetimes never crossing. You're so far from their world that you might as well be a different species. And yet, when rain falls on your roof, something in you reaches for the same comfort they reached for. Something in you wants what they had, not the hardship or the limitation, but the belonging, the fit, the coherence of being exactly where you were supposed to be. That reaching isn't weakness. It isn't regression or nostalgia or failure to adapt. It's your humanity refusing to be optimized away. It's the part of you that knows, without having to be taught, that human beings need more than efficiency and comfort and freedom. They need continuity. They need to belong to something larger than their individual lives. They need walls that remember them and ground that claims them, and a place in the world that makes sense. The modern world can't give you that, not the way the old world did. The structures that created that kind of belonging also created poverty and oppression and limitation. You can't have the continuity without the cage. You can't have the rootedness without giving up the freedom. The world broke apart for good reasons, or at least for powerful reasons, for reasons that benefited many people, including probably you. But knowing that doesn't stop the rain from sounding lonely. So you learn to carry both. You carry the freedom and the loneliness. You carry the comfort and the disconnection. You carry the miracle of your modern life and the ache for something you've never actually lost because you never actually had it. You become a house for contradictions, a shelter for impossible longings. You learn to live in the gap, and maybe, late at night, when the rain starts, you let yourself feel it fully. Not the nostalgia, not the fantasy of a better past, but the simple truth underneath the feeling. You're an animal that evolved to belong to a place, and you're living in a world that no longer provides that kind of belonging. Something in the equation of your existence is missing. Something you need, something your nervous system keeps checking for. Something that the sound of rain on an unfamiliar roof reminds you that you don't have. It's okay to feel that. And it's okay to let the loneliness be exactly what it is, without trying to fix it or explain it away or meditate it into meaning something else. You're homesick for a home that never existed for you, grieving for a continuity that broke before you were born. That's strange and sad and beautiful and true. All of those things at once. Just like the rain is just rain, and also a reminder of everything you've never had, and will never have. Let the sound wash over you. Let it be what it is, weather on walls, water on roof. Let your loneliness be what it is, an animal crying for something that can't be given anymore. Let it all exist together, the comfort of your shelter and the ache of your unsheltered heart. Because somewhere, a long time ago, someone who looked a little like you lay in the dark, listening to this same sound. They were tired and cold, and worried about things you'll never have to worry about. They had no idea you would exist someday. They had no idea that the roof keeping them dry would outlast them, or that their great-great-grandchild would be lying in a different building in a different century, missing something they never knew they had. But the rain fell on them just like it's falling on you. The same physics, the same chemistry, the same water cycling through the same sky. And for a moment, listening, you're connected across the gap of time and change and everything that's been lost. Not because you're the same, but because you're both human, both listening. both sheltered and unsheltered at the same time. Their roof knew them. Yours doesn't yet. Maybe it never will. But you're listening anyway. And they listen too. And maybe that's enough. Maybe the listening itself is the continuity. Maybe the fact that you can feel what's missing means you're still carrying something forward, some ember of the old coherence, some fragment of the ancient belonging. The rain doesn't care. It falls on every roof equally, on houses full of history and apartments full of strangers, on walls that remember and walls that forget. It makes its sound and moves on, indifferent to the longing it stirs in the listeners below. But you're not indifferent. You're here, listening, feeling, carrying the ache, holding the contradiction, being human in a world that has changed faster than humans can change, trying to find your place in a life that no longer provides places the way it used to. That's enough. For now, that's enough. The rain on your roof, the loneliness in your chest, the impossible longing for continuity in a discontinuous world. Let it all be here. Let it all be true. Let yourself be exactly what you are, a modern human with an ancient heart, listening to rain on a stranger's roof and wishing it could sound like home. The rain continues. The roof holds. The night deepens. And somewhere in the gap between what you have and what you need, between the shelter and the homesickness, you begin to drift. Not toward answers, because there are no answers. Not toward solutions, because some aches can't be solved. Just toward the soft dissolution of consciousness. Toward sleep. Toward the temporary forgetting that comes when the body finally stops asking questions the world can't answer. Tomorrow you'll wake up in these same walls. The rain might still be falling. You'll still be a tenant in your own life. Just sheltered, but not quite home. But tonight, now, let yourself rest in the ache. Let the loneliness be a kind of company. Let the rain be what it is, water falling on a roof that doesn't know you. A sound that means nothing except that somewhere, someone is listening. And maybe that's the closest you'll get to what your ancestors had. Not the continuity, not the rootedness, not the coherence of a life lived in one place for generations, but the listening, the capacity to hear what's missing, the willingness to feel the gap, the courage to be homesick for something you've never had and will never have. That's yours. That belongs to you, even if nothing else does. The ache itself is a kind of inheritance, passed down through generations of listeners, or through all the people who lay in the dark and heard rain and felt the complicated truth of being sheltered and unbelonging at the same time. You're part of that lineage now, not of place, but of listening, not of roots, but of longing, not of the coherence you wish you had, but of the beautiful, terrible capacity to notice its absence. Let that be enough. Let the rain fall. Let your stranger's roof do its job. Let your ancient heart keep aching for what it needs. Let it all be true at once. And let yourself, finally, begin to release the question of why this hurts. It hurts because you're human. It hurts because you're alive. It hurts because you can still feel the shape of what's missing, even if you can't have it back. The rain knows nothing about this. It falls and falls, completing its ancient cycle, indifferent to the meanings humans make of it. But you're not indifferent. You're here, feeling, listening, carrying forward something that matters, even if you can't name it. And the night is long enough to hold all of it. The loneliness and the shelter, the freedom and the ache, the gratitude for what you have, and the grief for what you'll never have. All of it, together, under this temporary roof, while the rain falls and you listen and your heart stays soft enough to break over something as simple as weather. That softness is everything. Hold on to it. Let it hurt. Let it be beautiful. Let it connect you to everyone who has ever listened to rain and felt the gap between shelter and home, between location and place, between having walls around you and being held by walls that know you. You're not alone in this loneliness. You're part of a long lineage of the displaced, the mobile, the free, and the unrooted. Every person who has ever left home. Every person who has ever slept in a building that didn't know their family. Every person who has ever felt the peculiar isolation of being safe, but not quite belonging. You're all listening together, across time and space, to rain on strangers' roofs, feeling the same impossible ache. And maybe that's the new continuity, not of place, but of longing, not of roots, but of rootlessness shared across generations. Not the coherence you wish you had, but the coherence of knowing that others feel this too, that this ache is human, that the gap between what you are and what you need is something you carry together with everyone who has ever modernized faster than their hearts could follow. The old continuity is gone. The roofs that knew your ancestors are sheltering strangers now, or they've collapsed into the earth, or they're standing empty, slowly forgetting the sound of the footsteps they used to know. You can't get that back. No one can. That kind of belonging belonged to a world that doesn't exist anymore, that can't exist anymore. That had to end for you to have the life you have. But something else is being born in the ending. Some new way of being human that you're only beginning to understand. Some way of carrying your rootlessness with grace, of being mobile without being lost, of building continuity out of something other than walls and land and generations sleeping under the same roof. You don't know what that looks like yet. No one does. You're all figuring it out together, all the displaced children of the modern world, all trying to learn how to be human in a way that humans have never had to be before. Trying to find belonging without place. Trying to build coherence without continuity. Trying to be rooted in something that can move with you when you move. It's hard. It's lonely. It's not what your nervous system was designed for. But it's also remarkable in its way. You're pioneering a new kind of human existence, whether you want to be or not. You're learning to carry your place inside you instead of being carried by a place. You're learning to belong to ideas and values and relationships instead of belonging to land. You're learning to build a self that can remain coherent even when everything around you changes. Your ancestors didn't have to learn that. They inherited their place. It was given to them or forced on them, long before they were conscious enough to question it. They fit into a pattern that existed before they were born and would continue after they died. They belonged without choosing to belong. You have to choose. Every day, you have to choose what to belong to, who to belong with, how to make yourself feel rooted in a rootless world. It's exhausting. It's an enormous amount of work that shouldn't have to be work. But it's also a kind of freedom they never had. You get to decide. You get to build your own continuity, even if it's not the continuity your body is looking for. And maybe, slowly, over generations, human bodies will change to match this new way of living. Maybe your great-great-grandchildren will have nervous systems that don't ache for rootedness, that don't feel lonely when rain falls on an unfamiliar roof. Maybe they'll be built for mobility, for flexibility, for belonging to ideas instead of places. Maybe they'll listen to rain and feel nothing except the weather. But you're not there yet. You're in the in-between. You're carrying an ancient body into a modern world, trying to make peace with the mismatch, trying to honor both the longing and the freedom, trying to be grateful for what you have while grieving for what you've lost, even though you never lost it because you never had it. It's a lot to hold. Too much sometimes. But you're holding it anyway. You're listening to rain on a stranger's roof and feeling the ache and not running from it, not medicating it away, not pretending it's not there. You're letting yourself be fully human in all the complicated, contradictory ways that means right now. And that's brave. That's beautiful. That's worth something, even if you can't measure what it's worth, even if it doesn't make you happier or more successful or better at anything. The willingness to feel what you feel, to let the loneliness exist without trying to fix it, to acknowledge that something important is missing from your life, even though your life is also full of things your ancestors would have died to have. That willingness is a kind of integrity. It's you refusing to become numb just because numbness would be easier. So let the rain keep falling. Let your heart keep aching. Let the roof remain a stranger. All of that is true. And all of that is okay. And all of that is part of what it means to be alive right now, in this moment, in this world that's still figuring out how to hold people like you. You're sheltered. You're safe. The rain can't touch you. But you can hear it anyway, and you can feel what it means, and you can let that meaning wash through you without needing to change it into something else. That's enough. That's everything. That's the work of being human in a time when being human has become more complicated than it used to be. And the night is holding you while you do that work. The darkness is big enough for all of it, for the loneliness and the listening, for the ache and the acceptance, for the modern and the ancient, for everything you are and everything you wish you could be. Let yourself be held. Not by walls that know you, because those walls don't exist for you, but by something larger. By time, maybe. By the long arc of human experience that includes everyone who has ever felt what you're feeling. By the rain itself falling equally on every roof and connecting you to every other listener in its indifferent, perfect democracy. You're part of something, even if it's not the something you wish you were part of. You belong somewhere, even if it's not the somewhere your body thinks you should belong. You're rooted in something, even if that something is just your own capacity to feel the absence of roots. And maybe that's the truth you needed to hear tonight. Not that the loneliness will go away, not that you'll find what you're looking for, not that the roof will learn to know you, or that you'll somehow recover the continuity that was lost before you were born. Just that you're human, just that the ache is real, just that you're allowed to feel it without fixing it. Just that the rain falls on everyone's roof, and everyone hears it differently. And your hearing is valid even if it's lonely, even if it comes with longing, even if it reminds you of everything you don't have. The rain doesn't judge you for feeling what you feel. The night doesn't require you to make sense of it. The darkness doesn't need you to solve the unsolvable problem of how to belong in a world that no longer creates belonging the way it used to. All you have to do is be here, listening, feeling, holding the contradiction, being exactly what you are, which is a modern human with an ancient heart, trying to find rest in a world that has changed faster than hearts can change. And rest is coming. You can feel it now, maybe. The softening at the edges of your thoughts. The way the rain is becoming just rain again. Not a symbol, not a trigger. Just weather doing what weather does. The way your body is starting to let go of the questions it's been holding, starting to sink into the simple fact of being horizontal, being still, being safe enough to stop trying to figure anything out. This is the dissolution you need. Not answers, but the release of needing answers. Not solutions, but the softening of the problem itself. Not belonging, but the acceptance that for tonight, this is where you are. This roof, these walls, this bed, this body, this ache, this listening. All of it is here. All of it is you. And all of it can rest now. The rain will fall, whether you're awake to hear it or not. The loneliness will still be there in the morning. The gap between what you have and what you need won't close overnight. But right now, for these next hours, you can let it all be. You can stop wrestling with it. You can stop trying to understand it or fix it or make it mean something it doesn't mean. You can just be a person in a bed, listening to rain, feeling what you feel, slowly releasing into sleep. Your ancestors did this. Every night of their lives, they lay down in the dark and let go of the day. They didn't have answers either. They didn't know why life was the way it was. They didn't understand the forces that shaped their existence. They just had their questions and their aches and their own versions of loneliness. And they lay down anyway, and they slept anyway, and they woke up anyway, and they kept living. You're doing the same thing. You're part of that same lineage of people who don't have all the answers but keep living anyway, who feel the ache but keep breathing anyway, who notice what's missing but keep showing up anyway. That's the real continuity, not the roofs or the walls or the land, but the simple human act of lying down in the dark, feeling what you feel, and trusting that sleep will come, and morning will follow, and life will continue, whether you understand it or not. You're doing that now. You're trusting that now. You're letting yourself be held by that now. And the rain is still falling, soft and steady, covering everything equally, covering the roof that doesn't know you, and the earth that doesn't claim you, and the walls that will forget you when you leave, but also covering you, falling on your particular shelter on this particular night while you're still here to listen. That's something. That's enough. That's the gift of this moment, small as it is. You're alive. You're listening. You're feeling. You're letting yourself be exactly what you are. And the rain keeps falling. And the night keeps holding. And sleep is coming, slow and inevitable as weather. Let it come. Let yourself drift. Let the questions dissolve into the dark. Let your body remember what it already knows, which is how to rest even when the heart is restless, how to sleep even when the mind won't settle, how to let go even when there's nothing to hold on to. You've done this before. Your body knows how. It's been practicing since before you were born, in the warm dark of your mother's body, sleeping and waking and sleeping again without needing to understand anything. That wisdom is still there, older than your thoughts, older than your loneliness, older than the question of where you belong. It's just sleep. Or it's just the body doing what bodies do when night comes and they're safe enough to stop watching. You're safe enough. The roof is holding. The rain is just rain. And you can let go now. You can stop listening. You can stop thinking about what the listening means. You can just sink deeper into the mattress, into the dark, into the soft dissolution of consciousness. Your breathing is slowing. Your thoughts are spacing out. The edges of you are blurring, and somewhere in that blurring, the loneliness is blurring too. Not disappearing, just softening, just becoming part of the larger softness of sleep approaching. The rain on the roof, your breath in the dark, the slow releasing of everything you've been holding. All of it together, all of it here, all of it dissolving into the simple fact of this moment, which is just a body, just a bed, just shelter, just weather, just night, just this. Nothing to figure out, nothing to fix, nothing to be except what you already are, which is enough, which is everything, which is already dissolving into sleep. Let it, let go. Let the rain be the last sound. Let the dark be complete. Let sleep take you where sleep takes everyone, to the place before questions, before loneliness, before the need to belong to anything except the simple fact of being alive. You're there, almost there. Here, the rain, the breath, the letting go. And then, nothing. Just sleep. Just rest. Just the body doing what it knows. Under a roof that doesn't know you. In a world that's still figuring out how to hold you. Sleeping anyway. Dreaming, maybe. Or just gone. Into the soft dark. Where the rain can't follow. Where the loneliness can't reach. Where you don't need to be anything. Except asleep. Except at rest. Except human. Finally, human and still. And here. The rain continues outside, but inside, in the deep inside where you've gone now, there's only the slow tide of breath and the dissolution of everything that made you separate from the dark. You're not listening anymore. You're not wondering. You're not aching. You're just the soft animal fact of being, the warm mammal truth of rest, the ancient biological wisdom that knows how to stop. And in this stopping, there's a kind of belonging that has nothing to do with roofs or walls or continuity through time. It's the belonging of the body to sleep, of consciousness to its own periodic dissolution of the individual, to the great forgetting that comes every night for every person who has ever lived. Your ancestors slept like this, under their roofs that knew them, yes, but also beyond those roofs, in the same borderless country you're entering now, the country of sleep, where no one is a stranger, because no one is anything except sleeping. Where place doesn't matter because there is no place, just the dark behind your eyes and the soft nothing that holds you. They were here too, all of them, night after night, letting go of their questions just like you're letting go of yours, releasing their aches just like you're releasing yours, becoming nothing except the basic fact of a living body at rest. You're with them in this, not in place, not in time, but in the simple human rhythm of waking and sleeping, holding on and letting go, being someone and being no one over and over for as long as you're alive. This is the real continuity, not the external kind, not walls and land and generations in one place, but the internal kind, the rhythm that every human shares, the cycle that connects you to everyone who has ever closed their eyes and drifted into dark. And you're drifting now. You're almost gone now. Just these last words, like embers in the dying fire of consciousness. The rain, still falling, still covering everything. But you're not listening anymore. You're beyond listening, beyond the need to make meaning from weather, beyond the question of belonging. Just soft, just breathing, just here. And then, not even here, just sleep.